Okay, we are starting part 2 of our clipping group, and I was finishing up by adding a layer style to the type layer. Remember, you want to add that actually to the type layer here and not to the image above. So we are in our layer style, and just again to show you how we got that, let me cancel. Actually, I already have it up here, but the layer style was created down at the base. Make sure you're on your type layer, and then you can just add your layer style here. I've already got a couple in there. And I was just clicking on bevel and emboss and finishing that up, giving it a little more depth, making the technique chisel hard, and playing with the amount you want chiseled. I don't want a whole lot of that, just a little bit. Softening, just leave that at a little, and click OK. Now you certainly can add more if you want to. Last thing that let's go over is to add a background color, and I'm going to click on the background layer, and then I'm going to begin to put this solid color fill in behind the type. So click on your base layer, and your adjustment layers are right here. It's this round circle that sort of has a slash through it, and you can add a solid color fill layer at the very top. And when you do that, this layer will always show up above the layer that you're on, and that's why we wanted to click on the background. Now this is your color picker, and one really cool thing about the color picker is that when it's up, you can come into the image and you'll instantly get that eyedropper. So I can move down, let's say I want a dark sort of indigo blue. So click on a nice blue, and you can kind of see how that looks. Kind of play with the color, and what I love here is that you can actually try different colors and experiment before you're stuck with a color to find out it's not right, because you can actually see what's happening on the screen in your work. So I'm just going to give it a dark, I sort of feel like that dark look looks good, and click OK. Now type has that form and function, so make sure that you like how this looks and that you can read the words. Probably the only thing I would like to do is add space between these two. I might come back up and double click on the T, place my cursor right here, and add a space. And then when I'm done with type's a tricky tool to be in, so I'm just going to click back on the move tool. And I still have ample space between the edge of the paper and the where the type exists. I think maybe it moved at one point. You can always pull your guides out again. Do the same thing, pull out another one on this side. And you can see we're pretty much in good shape right there. Now, just want to mention one more thing, and that is that you can actually use more than one layer above your type. So if you want to, you could actually be bringing in quite a few layers just by selecting them and copying them from another image and then pasting them on top of your text. I think the most important thing you want to remember is that you want to kind of plop them right on top of your text, and it will look weird until you come in and option click on the line between each layer that you use. Like, you just keep going up and option clicking on each layer, and they will clip into your letter forms. Let me just show you. If I click on this layer and move it, you can see, let me say, let's just pretend for a minute, kind of horsing around here, that we want the mountains kind of in this portion of the mountain area, let's say right here, something like that. And we want something else over here. I'm going to open up a file let's say I want to bring in a part of this file, and you can see I've just placed, it's been put right here, and this is the file I've been working on over here. And you can grab any selection tool. We're starting to learn about these selection tools, but these allow you to select parts of your image, and a lot of them work. We did this with the stencils, but I'm going to use this lasso and just come in and select a region of this just to show you. And the other thing that's really cool is you can, if you want to create several kind of layers, if you feather the edge, what's really cool about feathering this edge, which softens it, is that when you combine different layers together, they sort of mesh together like clouds do, and it's really, really nice looking. So I'm just going to see if I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to come into the select menu and just give this a refined edge. Right now it looks really chopped out. We'll begin looking at this refined edge more. This again is in your select menu, but I'm going to feather this quite a bit. And you can see when you feather, it's going to give you a really nice slow fade between full opacity to transparency. And I'll be talking about refined edge more, but feathering is what we want for right now. And I'm just going to keep this as a selection and click OK. Now you can't tell that anything happened, but it did if you used refine edge. And I'm just going to edit copy this selected area. Now we're copying only the area that's selected, this mountain portion. Edit copy. And then I'm going to click back on the file where I'm working on the Rocky Mountains, and I'm going to edit and paste, just like a Word file. And that's huge, but that's okay. Maybe I'll use this portion of it. And I'm comparing the saturation level. Like this is really blue, very saturated, and this is more pale. So don't forget about your adjustments, and we will look at more of these in the future. And so I'm just going to move to hue saturation. Let me put this up here for a minute and saturate this a little more. Not much, but I just want it to match the other colors in the other image. Otherwise, it can look a little strange, especially when you're trying to read it. So I'm also moving the hue slider just a little bit to get sort of a nicer, more like a royal blue. And I'm noticing the colors in here. That's fairly close. Click OK. Now, this looks mushy. You know, it's like, what is that? But essentially, we're going to clip this in too. So don't worry when you see these blobs, these masses of layers. Once they're clipped in, they'll look pretty good. And I'm going to come back over here. This is clipped, but I've got to move up to the next line and option click on that as well. And now we have just kind of a really gorgeous blend between them. And I'm just still playing around in here to see what we like. The other thing too is if you want to, you can switch the hierarchy of your layers. I could move the layer 2 down, settle it in there. I'm not sure we like it, but you have that kind of an option as well. Now, I don't really like that, but you can kind of integrate these layers in their depth of field by just moving them. Let's try the way it was. Because I feathered this top layer, the one that I brought in, so you'll see, let me zoom in on that. This is what the feathering looks like. It's really gorgeous. So when I feathered that image, it fades out and then this image fades in. And that's where feathering can be great in these clipping groups. You can kind of see that's going on. So I might just sort of try to make it look like it's fitting into the image. And then fit back on screen and take a look. Well, that's a clipping group. They used to be called clipping masks. But either term you'll find in any kind of Google search on clipping groups, clipping masks. Again, don't forget that you can clip into actually people, or and we're going to kind of get into compositing one object into another. But for right now, explore this concept of clipping groups, and I hope you have a lot of fun. You might even want to explore maybe making a poster or a postcard where you say something like, Aspen, explore the high country or whatever, something where you could even begin to build a slogan in here. And the other last option to mention is that instead of a color fill layer, a lot of students will bring in another image as long as it isn't too busy, and this type is in the open space. Thanks a lot and enjoy the process.